Hey guys, we're gonna go into what is the fourth PowerPoint, so I'll refer to that as 1.4, and talking about, so we're gonna talk about a spending plan, and today we're gonna talk about, but you're not gonna finish creating your personal plan because we want to do that after you've done your spending log so that it's gonna be more accurate. So we will do kind of a practice for Maya, and we'll have more details about her in a few. So when we think about shopping experiences, whether they're in person or online, we talked about some of this last week about how when we're trying to get the best deal, how coupons and frequent shopping cards and loyalty programs, how those things can work in our favor. But let's face it, the store would not offer those things if they weren't also in their favor. So as we think of some of these things and kind of answer these questions, you might reflect back on some of our conversation during class last week. So when you go into a store, if it's a store that has a store window, you might have heard the term window shopping. We don't do nearly that as we did when there were big downtown stores available. But what kind of things do they put in the store window to get you to walk in? So perhaps think about the last time you were in a mall. So maybe they put information about the best sales, or the trendiest outfits, like well put together, that make it look really good. And then when you walk into the store, what's the first thing that you typically see when you walk in? In my experience, that item that was on sale or information about a great sale that was in the window is not often the first thing I see when I walk in. Instead, the first things I see when I walk in are typically not things that are on sale, or not a great sale at least. And so we have that temptation to buy it because we see it and it's well put together, or it's the latest video game, depending on what kind of store obviously you're in, and what it is you might be going in there to start with. And so think about if you're going in for one thing. This could even be at the grocery store. I'm just going to stop in and buy a couple things. But what kinds of things do you have to walk past in order to get to what you want to buy? So sometimes it seems like, man, could you just put the milk up at the front of the store? And I have to give Payless at Cross Street a little bit of a props, and maybe the other Paylesses too. They do have a small cooler with at least some varieties of milk near the front of the store. But typically, think about Walmart, Meijer. The milk, the bread, the things that you would need to buy often are often way at the back of the store. So you're going to have to walk through the whole store to grab those commonly purchased items. Maybe you're coming to the store to buy several items, but even if you're not, they're going to have you walking past those things. And then, of course, when you're standing in line at the register, you have all those impulse buying items. You have like a whole little section of that, say at Marshall's, when you're in the queue, in the line for the next register, and oh, these are some nice little gift items. Or when your child is, getting fussy, or you're hungry and there are candy bars at the checkout. So, and then after you are making your purchase, and we talked about this specifically about Kohl's Cash, getting those coupons or some kind of flyer that encourages you to come back, right? And oftentimes those things are going to have short expiration dates. Like, it's not good today, but it's good in 3 days, but it's only good for a week. And maybe otherwise there's no way you would have come back to the store, that same store, in that time period. But now you have that, quote, free money to spend. So of course you want to come back. And online, we see some of the same things. Online, it may be spend $50 to get free shipping. So maybe you only wanted something that was $40, but wow, it's going to cost me $6 for shipping. Been there, done that. Not saying it's always bad to take the kind of upsell, but just know that that they're trying to play us. All right, they're trying to get us in a gotcha moment, and entice us to spend more than we planned. So if we actually have a spending plan, then that should help us better manage our spending habits. So if we know I only have $100 to spend on gifts, or I'm putting a limit on how much I'll spend at Christmas, or a limit on how much I'll spend for new clothing. So having those plans, where we maybe put some limits on things, or we have certain purposes that we know we have SMART goals and we are saving for, can make it much easier to say no when we know that saying no means saying yes to something that we want more than that item that we're walking past. So again, I said this before, but we're going to talk a little bit about the spending plan, but we will spend more time on this after we're finished with Unit 1, because I want you guys to be able to look back at your monthly spending log to really see, like, where am I spending money and which of these things are actually needs and which ones are wants. I think sometimes trying to come up with a plan if you haven't already analyzed your spending isn't nearly as meaningful. So, besides the things that we plan for, there are all the whoops, right? All the things that we don't plan for. And so I want you to think about these things and what does the repair for these things cost? Or in some cases, it's really going to be more cost effective to just replace it, which always kind of breaks my heart, because I just hate that we're such a disposable society, and it just creates so much waste. But I'll get off my soapbox for a moment. So, and if you wanted to find information about that, you could simply type into Google something like, what would it cost to replace a flat screen TV? How much would it cost to fix? Or if you were thinking replace, you would basically just go online as if you were shopping for the item. So if you've downloaded a virus on your computer, what's it going to cost to get that computer up and running again, if you can? If you have a fender bender, what's your deductible? Even if you have full coverage, what's your deductible going to be? You know, hopefully we all have insurance, as we're supposed to have, but what's that deductible going to be? And if I don't have full coverage, what is all going to be my responsibility for my own car? What would I choose to do? How about a flat tire? Could be as simple as getting it plugged, probably less than $10. Maybe you have some kind of warranty on your tires, or maybe it's like so bad you have to replace the whole tire. Or maybe you had to drive on it and now your rim is messed up. Now it just got really expensive. What about if you had a broken bone? You had to go out to like central Indiana. Again, even with insurance, co-pays and those kind of things. How about if you lost your cell phone? Probably a lot of us don't use our iPods much anymore because our cell phones kind of just do both, right? Or how about if you run out of gas? So obviously you're going to have to get gas, but do you need to like have someone go get it for you? What are they going to, if AAA comes, then what do they charge you for the gas that they bring? Or if you had to call a tow service, or if it meant you were late to work. So sometimes there are some immediate costs, and then sometimes there are some other associated costs. So if you looked up a few of those, now I want you to stop and pause and think, do I have enough money on hand to cover that situation? Or is this, if this happened, would I be like SOL? Sure out of luck. Now, if you broke your flat screen TV, perhaps you'd just have to go without one for a while. But what if you somehow broke your friend's flat screen TV and now you need to replace it? Or you need a computer for school or for work, and so you have to get that virus repaired, or you have to fix that flat tire, right? Because you need to drive, you need to get places. So we need to be prepared for those situations too, so that those kind of typical situations that come up that are unexpected, that we are prepared to deal with them. So having a spending plan helps to give us a map of sorts for success. And I like this quote by Benjamin Franklin. It says, "By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail." And besides spending, I think we could think about that like for a test. If you fail to prepare for a test, then you should get prepared to fail the test. It may sound kind of harsh, but so if we don't prepare for things, it's like that's preparation in itself, but to fail. So trying to have priorities so that we can make plans that are going to allow us to make progress towards those short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals. Avoiding some of the gotcha moments, the traps that retailers, businesses try to get us in. And sometimes the buyer's remorse of, oh, why did I buy this? When you see that, sweater hanging in your closet that you still haven't worn, like, what was I thinking? Deal with unexpected things, like things we just talked about on the last slide. Have some money on hand when you do need it, and also help you be in control of how your money is used and not be spending a certain amount of your money on things like service fees because things were late, or extra interest charges. So here we have a list of expenses for Michael and Selena. We met them earlier in Unit 1, and we're still in Unit 1, but we met them earlier last week. And we know they both do live at home, but that Michael is responsible for more of his own personal expenses. And his monthly expenses, as you can see here, these are the things that he's doing with his money currently. And then you see Selena, one, she's only a freshman, so she probably doesn't have car insurance yet. And her parents are still taking care of some things, so if she has that cell phone that we talked about last week, her parents are footing that bill. So The estimated total expenses for Michael is $410 a month, and for Selena, $178. But Michael has a job, and his estimated income, and he's estimated low to be on the safe side, is $544. And Selena, with a few things like allowance and odd jobs here and there, her estimated income is $160. So Michael has a surplus beyond his expenses of $134 a month. And Selena, she's short $18 a month. So if she really wants to do all of these things, she is short $18 a month. So what we want to also consider that back in our earlier section about goals, Selena also had a goal to save $25 a month. So if we consider that goal, she's really $43 a month short. And Michael has a goal to save $40 a week. So 40 times 4, 160, and then of course there's a little more than a week in a month. So Michael, if we consider, he doesn't quite have enough to make that goal. He's doing much, I mean, he's covering his expenses, but he's not going to be able to put aside as much money. So think about where are some places that it would seem that Michael or Selena could either cut some expenses so that they can make their savings goal and pay all their expenses, or how could they maybe increase their income? So when we're building a spending plan, we need to think about what are the goals. For instance, if there are goals to save money for certain things, how long do we think this plan is going to be used? How much income is available? So in their case, if their income is pretty static, if he can't really work more and that's really all the income either of them can have, then we're going to have to only focus on changing their expenses. What are their anticipated expenses, which we had, and then how does the plan need to be adjusted so that we're not spending more than we are earning, and so that we can also be working toward those goals. So when you're trying to predict your income, and again, we're going to do more of this for you specifically after you've done your spending log, but we would want to think like if you have a job or if you have allowance, interest on things. Right now, interest rates are very low, so it's doubtful that any of you are getting a grand amount of interest. Do you have a birthday coming up? Do you typically get some gifts? Or maybe sales. Maybe you are selling some used clothing, or you put things on Facebook Marketplace, video games, whatever it might be. So be sure that you use what is known, and be conservative, right? Be conservative when you're estimating. Estimate lower rather than higher. Don't count on Aunt Betty's going to give me $50 for my birthday this year if usually you only get $10. Or maybe at your work you typically get a bonus every year at Christmas. My husband and I have talked about that. He gets some nice bonus. When you look at your expenses, you want to think of what are some expenses that are fixed. So these are ones that you know about but they're regular. Like it's the same amount every month. Maybe your cell phone, maybe your rent. Man, that's fixed and it's regular. It's like solid. It's all the time, right? Or maybe variable. You know you're going to have to pay for groceries, but the amount is flexible. Your utilities, in most cases, are also variable. You know you're going to have a utility bill, but you could perhaps turn your temperature down, or you can't, it's going to be a little bit irregular because maybe it's really hot and then you've used your air conditioning more or your water. And then periodic, here they mention school fees, but one thing I think of there specifically is insurance. I try to pay our insurance once a year because I get a nice, very healthy discount for doing that. It's not always feasible for people to do that, but maybe if you pay insurance every 6 months, or once you own a home, you have property taxes, and they're due twice a year. So putting aside money for those things that you know are going to come up, and maybe that's even just you pay your insurance by the month, but you put aside money each week. So those might be periodic, you know about them, but they're not like every week or even maybe every month. They could be every 6 months, once a year, like your registration and your license plates once a year. So for variable expenses, using an average so that you have the money put aside for that. And then if you had a $1,200 annual car insurance, dividing that up to put aside $100 a month, so that once it's here, you're not trying to come up with $1,200 all in that same month. And that gives us a better picture of what our expenses are. So this isn't PYT, Pretty Young Thing. You remember that song? That's what I thought of when I saw PYF instead of PYT. But anyway, so pay yourself first. So setting aside money that you can save for big ticket items. If you pay yourself first, like putting money aside, that's going to help you avoid borrowing, which just costs you more money, whether that's borrowing from a bank, using a credit card that you can't pay off every month, payday loans. Ooh, that's some scary stuff there as far as how much that costs. So avoid borrowing. It's wise to save a little now for later, and then every time you pay yourself first, you're going to have more money to spend later on things that are important to you. So treating that PYF fund, pay yourself first fund, as one of your expenses so that you plan on that. So the ideal situation, of course, is that we're spending at or below your means as in your income. So don't live above your means. So don't live above what you're making. So income is greater than or equal to expenses. If the expenses happen to be greater than the income, then we need to bring down those variable expenses, like turn the air conditioning off or to a better setting, stop eating out, etc. Or try to make more money and increase our income, or down those unnecessary expenses. Maybe that's things like eating out, buying new clothes that maybe right now we don't need, that could wait. If income is greater than expenses, woohoo, besides have a party, then increase that amount that you're paying yourself first so that your savings are going up, and decrease anything loan obligations. So in other words, really it means increase your payments on loans so that you can then get those loans paid off sooner. So one of your assignments for today, and some of you have already done this, you guys are such rock stars. One of your assignments for today that got posted maybe on Friday, so you guys have seen it, but it's not due until Monday night, is about Maya's spending plan, and this information should also be in the assignment. But Maya's a senior in high school. She works part-time. She is expected to pay her own car loan and a few other bills, and so you're to help her set up a spending plan to cover her expenses, and also give her enough room for some PYF, pay yourself first, to save money for a trip and college tuition. So to think about this, like, what are Maya's goals? Think about what she's saving money for. How much is her income? Again, there's more information in the assignment. What are the fixed expenses that, like, we're not going to be able to change those? And how do you think then her variable expenses can be adjusted? And that, what you're going to turn into me for that assignment, is in a spreadsheet that as you change numbers, you're going to see that totals automatically change. So if we don't have a spending plan, what's going to happen? Well, sometimes there doesn't happen to be a big, you're not getting struck by lightning, right? But things that can happen is you might come up short before the next paycheck or allowance, depending on your situation. More likely to not reach those long-term spending goals, because if you don't have a plan, chances are you're just spending it at will, and then not putting aside things and paying yourself first. You might add some more stress, which none of us need that right now, or any time, but in this current time that we live in. But if we're struggling to keep up with payments, and it's I have to rob Peter to pay Paul, and which thing can I pay, and this one's late, but this one's going to be shut off. Whew. And without the plan, you're going to spend more money on things like interest, because maybe you're not getting things paid on time. And then you might have to give up something, because maybe there's one of those whoops, unexpected emergencies. And so there might be something that you had planned, but if you hadn't been putting any money aside, and then you have an unexpected emergency, then something you plan to do might not be able to do. Also, in America, we tend to favor being independent. And so if you have to, like, ask your parents, or you have to ask someone for help, you give up some of that independence if you have to end up asking someone. So those are some of the pitfalls if you don't have a spending plan. Right now, it is not assigned for you to create your own spending plan. That will be a later assignment, so you can kind of ignore this